And we are here with Ian Freeman, co-host of Free Talk Live and local longtime cryptocurrency advocate and activist. How's it going, Ian?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me, Joel.
Yeah, it's really great having you too. It's I've noticed there's a lot of big name crypto stars on Free Talk Live, and I noticed there's even a few people that no one knows about like me that have made appearances before.
You've been a
And
co-host of the show.
yes, and I'm wondering, it seems like Free Talk Live does not specifically focus on cryptocurrency. At least that's not its founding mission or
No.
stated thrust.
Yeah,
So how did you get involved in cryptocurrency?
well, Free Talk Live is how actually Roger Ver, who's also a libertarian, in addition to being this controversial libertarian figure within the Bitcoin sphere, he's a pretty principled liberty guy, and he used to just be a listener and advertiser on Free Talk Live back before he was Bitcoin Jesus. And he heard us talking about Bitcoin one night, I think back in like 2011 or something like that. And that's how he actually found out about Bitcoin. And he caught the vision in a way that we didn't. Like we were into alternative currencies like gold and silver and things like that. But for us, it was like, oh yeah, what's this digital currency? Sounds kind of cool. But we didn't really like see the vision like he did, where he saw Bitcoin and crypto as this way to kind of basically bring down the state, to essentially take economic activity away from state money and putting it into a money that we, people control, not bankers, not government goons. And he saw this like crystal clear at that time. That's why he put a bunch of his own money into buying Bitcoin way back when. And so thanks to Roger, he basically kind of dragged us into it. As I said, he was an advertiser on Free Talk Live at the time for his memory company. He owns a memory manufacturer in Japan called Memory Dealers. So he was already one of our sponsors, and so he came to us and said, well, I've got these Bitcoins. I would like to pay for my advertising with Bitcoin. And of course we were like, we'll take a little bit. We should have taken 100%, but I think we only took like 10 or 15% in the beginning. And then over time, he convinced us to take more and more. So now today, here we are 6 or so years later in 2017, where Bitcoin is some months more than half of the advertising revenue that comes in. I guess I should say all crypto, because we also have Dash on board. So Bitcoin and Dash are the two cryptos that we're taking in now. And there's sometimes where in aggregate they are bigger in total than US dollars.
So it's sort of that libertarian thing that when Roger sort of convinced you that this is the money libertarians should be promoting, this is the way forward, is to start using digital currencies, this is the way to reduce the size and scope of government most effectively. Is that kind of what got you hooked?
I would say that pretty much encompasses what his vision was for it. And I mean, as somebody who strongly supports ending the idea of the coercive state, then obviously that resonated with us. And once we could see the real benefit, we actually also had a meeting with Gavin Andreessen, where he came up, because he lives not too far from here, about an hour south in Massachusetts, came up to Keene and took us out to lunch, me and Mark Edge, my co-host, and he paid Mark for that lunch, which was at like the Thai place on Main Street in Keene. He paid Mark. Mark set up a Bitcoin wallet. He paid him, I don't know, it was like 27 Bitcoin or something like that at the time for that lunch. So, we had two different real positive libertarian influences helping us understand it. And we did, embraced it, and became supposedly the first national ad venue in the world that was willing to accept Bitcoin. And there still aren't very many that are, unfortunately.
Yeah, so there's in the libertarian world, of course, digital currencies are very well known, more so than in the rest of the world. Oh, yeah. However, going around, you see a lot of people are very familiar and kind of generally informed about it or use it, but it doesn't seem like doesn't necessarily come with the territory that you go all in, go really deep, start having actively seeking out income in digital currencies, actively seeking out their promotion, talking about them a whole lot. It seems like it's more like a footnote, like an issue. Oh, we got jury nullification going, we got ending wars, we got cutting taxes, we got all the kinds of issues going on. But it seems like to make it such a central issue, it has to have been a conscious decision. So why did you pursue it so strongly as opposed to other forms?
You mean on the radio, or?
Yes, in terms of discussions, in terms of a local activism, in terms of actually using it as part of a business model.
Sure. Okay, so that's a much bigger question. So as far as like activism is concerned, I'm here in Keene. You're also in New Hampshire on the. Are you still on the seacoast? Is that where you're at?
Yes, I am. Dover.
Right. So there's different kind of activist hotspots. The seacoast is one of them. Keene, Manchester, and we've seen a lot of Bitcoin activism out here in the Keene area, and as a result of that, it has turned Keene into what we say is the city with the highest concentration per capita of Bitcoin accepting businesses. We're always looking for the next great activism. People have been paying attention to one of my other websites, freekeen.com, which sort of catalogs a fraction of the activism that goes on here in New Hampshire. A lot of it that happens in Keene. We've gone through a lot of different types of activism over the years. Some of it has been short-lived, like civil disobedience, which isn't a very sustainable form of activism. It's fun, it's empowering, it's exciting, and it gets headlines. But it ultimately, for the individuals performing it, it tends to build up and make it much more difficult over time to accomplish that, because you can only get arrested so often because they keep stacking charges and making life much more difficult. So there's activism has sort of come in waves. Things come, things go, and cryptocurrency activism has become a lot bigger over the last few years here in Keene, because it's beneficial to people. A lot of activism is very controversial, where if you're smoking pot in Central Square, or people are taking their tops off, which are two things that we've done here in Keene, there's obviously going to be people feeling very strongly about that, either for or against it. And I'm not saying people shouldn't do those things. I fully support anybody that wants to do civil disobedience and bring social issues to the forefront. But as far as like controversial activism is concerned, giving away money, not that controversial. And certainly there's going to be some people who don't like Bitcoin, like the bankers and the people in the old money system. So you're always going to have your haters. But as far as the average member of the public is concerned, it would seem that a lot of people are interested in money. So like, most people probably are interested in money. And this is a really cool thing to introduce them to.
Yeah, that happened. That happened to me recently. I was trying to hold a meetup at a local business, and I was trying to talk to the owner about it. And all I mentioned was, or a local business group interested in digital currencies or looking for a place to have a meetup. And pretty quickly, I got an answer of, we don't want to get involved with any of that stuff because it's got too much of a political tinge to it.
Yeah.
And so. About the forms of activism, I'm sure it's a more sustainable form of activism because it's a way of actually making money as opposed to losing money because you're dealing with money. Do you think that's at all accurate?
Well, that obviously helps any kind of activism if there's a way to get a revenue stream in some way, whether it's donations or selling Bitcoin or whatever it might be. Then any activism that can be self-funding is going to be activism that probably lasts for a lot longer. And in this case, this particular activism, it is building on itself. When businesses accept Bitcoin and then they start spending their Bitcoin with other businesses in town, you get this kind of cool local currency feel. So even though Bitcoin isn't a local currency, it's an international currency. The way that I've been marketing it here, or that the Keene Bitcoin Network has been promoting it, is like it kind of still feels like a local currency. Some people might be familiar with some of the local currency experiments, like the Ithaca Hour out of Ithaca, New York, and some of the copies of that in other places, like the Mountain Hour or whatever. Anyway, the problems with some of those currencies are that they're tied to the U.S. dollar, and so therefore they're subject to the dollar's inflation as well as subject to the inflation of the operator of the currency. So there's some pretty big issues with it, but those things have been to some extent, especially in Ithaca, very popular because they have that. Well, we're local. Let's keep the money in the local economy, and Bitcoin accomplishes that. It accomplishes it in the way of, well, it gives local business owners or people the ability to sort of transact business locally, but also when Bitcoin had low fees, and of course Dash has very low fees now, you know, those low fees mean that the business owner gets to keep almost, well, I guess the business owner keeps 100% because the sender pays the fee. But even those fees were very, very small, much smaller than credit card fees. And they still are today with the Dash system. So that's what we want to see is more money staying in the community, and Bitcoin accomplishes that without having the central control over the currency like the Ithaca Hour and those others. In fact, there's kind of a cool story here. So on one side, Joel, there is still that controversial aspect. Like you said, there was a business owner who kind of gave you some pushback because of the politics of it. And we actually had one business here that had started taking Bitcoin that stopped taking it because there are some people who are, let's call them liberty haters here in town, or people who hate libertarianism or the Free State Project or whatever.
People with too much time on their hands.
Yeah, they literally threatened these business owners with economic consequences if they continued to accept Bitcoin. And I don't know how many people made those threats, but enough of them threatened them to the point where they decided they were no longer going to accept Bitcoin. And that was really, you know, a sad thing to have happen. It's like, you know, we don't want your kind around here, basically, for cryptocurrency.
Yeah, have you seen a shift in the role of Bitcoin and the kind of people that get involved in it? Like, obviously in the beginning, it's got a crypto-anarchist tinge to it, and it's got a lot of people looking for cool new technology because you can send anywhere in the world for very, very cheap, and you just want everyone to take Bitcoin, everyone to accept Bitcoin at their local store, like that whole vibe. And it seems like that's very much alive locally. But what do you think about the greater cryptocurrency and Bitcoin scene? Is it still a lot of people trying to get mom and pop bakery to take Bitcoin so they can live cheaply or without government money, or is there a little bit of a shift you've seen?
Well, you know, I can't really judge what's going on outside of my immediate vicinity. I mean, there's a huge cryptocurrency world out there. What is it, $100+ billion worth right now, or something like that? It's darn close. You know, I have no idea what people outside of this area are doing, but I can tell you what I've experienced here, and that is we have a meetup group for the Keene Bitcoin Network, and people from as far away as the Lakes region, which is like an hour and a half drive from here, have come to Keene because they want to learn about Bitcoin, and they didn't know of anything that they could do out where they live. So they found our group, and they'd come out. People, they tend to be older, the ones that are like sort of the newbies here, at least here in New Hampshire. Again, this doesn't necessarily apply everywhere, but older folks, maybe in their 50s, 60s, that are curious. They've heard about Bitcoin. They've maybe seen the price rising over the last 6 months. So how many of them are libertarians? I don't know. We don't know them that well. They're just folks that, you know, that show up at a Bitcoin meetup. But, you know, to me, that doesn't matter. I'm not looking to bring just libertarians on, right? That libertarians were the core that started this thing, and it can apply to anybody that cares about their personal finances and business. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing some older folks coming in. You know, they may have investments for retirements and things like that. I remember specifically one lady who runs a garbage service here in Keene. I just happened to ask her when I was calling to pay my bill a few months ago. I said, "Hey, are you guys accepting Bitcoin yet?" And, you know, fully expecting for her to not have ever heard about it, but she had. And she wasn't accepting Bitcoin, but she'd heard about it and was very interested in learning more about it. And she's 70 years old. So, you know, business owner, 70 years old. So you get quite the range.
Interesting. Now, how have you seen the cryptocurrency world diversify? I mean, back in the day, I'm sure there was always interest in lots of different coins whenever they existed, right? There was always a few. But now it's the market cap has really diversified, so that Bitcoin's only around 42% of the market right now.
Yep.
And how is that? How have you seen that diversify in your world, and particularly in the Main Street adoption kind of thing, like using not just taking Bitcoin to hold it and watch it go up, but actually using it for day-to-day purchases?
I think that's one of the most exciting things about what's happening here is that, you know, not only can the customer go into a place like Local Burger or Little Zoe's Pizza and, you know, walk out, or at Corner News, which has been taking Bitcoin since 2013 here, the longest storefront in Keene to do that, and, you know, walk out with an actual product or food or whatever that they've purchased with their cryptocurrency. Not only is that pretty cool, but you've also got this sort of business to business thing that I touched on before. So on the one hand, there's this one business that got sort of threatened economically, but I contacted another business in town, Corner News, and I asked them, and they haven't had any threats. So it's like whoever it was only targeted that one place for some reason. And she also said she wouldn't drop Bitcoin anyway, because she knows, she sees all the customers who are using Bitcoin, and she knows they're not all libertarians. And then you get this business to business thing where we just got the portal map this year, which I don't know if you have one of these things out in your area, but they're like an illustrated map with local businesses, advertisements on it. You know, you can find their plot points on the map, that kind of thing. Anyway, I got him closed on accepting Bitcoin for advertising this year, so I'm going to be putting a Bitcoin ad in the portal map, just generally promoting what is Bitcoin. You know, it's internet money. Go to bitcoin.com, learn more, that kind of thing. Just a quickie ad. It's going to be on the front cover. But as soon as he started taking Bitcoin, what I said to him was, well, you know, it'd be kind of cool if we could put little Bitcoin icons on the map. So like whatever businesses that are on the map that accept Bitcoin would have a little Bitcoin circle next to it, right, with the Bitcoin logo. And he said he was interested in doing that. And as it turns out, there were already a couple of people who were on last year's map, like Local Burger, accept Bitcoin. So we already had a few that would be down with it. But he's increased that amount, the guy who's selling the ad space on the map, by contacting the Bitcoin accepting businesses in town and letting them know that he's accepting Bitcoin for payment. And that has resulted in more business coming in for him. He has closed additional sales as a result of Bitcoin being a way that he can accept payment. In fact, he's actually gotten people off of the fence. So the Corner News place I mentioned, she wasn't sure if she was going to buy, but when she found out that she could pay with Bitcoin, it was done deal. So like that has brought him new business that he hasn't had before. And again, it's that sort of circulating in the local economy thing that I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, so how does Dash come into the picture? I know there's a bunch of different cryptocurrencies to go for, and there's a bunch of different uses for them. And it seems like you guys have a strategic partnership with Dash. And how did that happen out of all the other coins?
Well, Dash seems to be, like, to me, the smartest coin that's out there competing with, you know, Bitcoin for the king of the hill position. I like the idea that Dash has that that unity aspect to it, where it's not just some programmers and miners deciding things, it's actually the people who are involved as well, and they can, you know, decide where to send that 10% that's coming out and going into sort of the Dash kitty, where they spend it on promoting Dash. So it seems to be the smartest coin in that it's self-promoting itself in a way that I've never seen other cryptos do. And I'm not just saying that because Dash is an advertiser on Free Talk Live. I thought that that was true before they started advertising. That's one of the reasons why we went and looked to Dash, as many have. And that's only good for Dash. And it's only good at helping Dash get out there. I saw, for instance, one of the behind-the-scenes Bitcoin vending machine vendors, which is a company called Reload. Dash paid them to integrate Dash into their reloading system. So they previously only had Bitcoin. Now they have Dash. That's going to empower Bitcoin vending machines to add Dash, as the Portsmouth vending machine recently did. And we're working on doing in Manchester as well, and hopefully out in Keene eventually. You're going to wait on some software for that. But Dash is smart like that, and I don't see that coming from any other cryptos.
So what do you think is the biggest challenge, the biggest hurdle or roadblock to wide Main Street adoption of cryptocurrency? Like where you could just walk down Main Street, go into any coffee shop, any bakery, any kiosk, whatever, and just pay with cryptocurrency. What's the big couple things that are in the way of that?
Well, it's, you know, the things that are in the way of that are definitely the fact that there aren't very many options. So right now, BitPay is really the only serious player in this area of point of sale access for cryptocurrency purchases. BitPay does a great job. Like, their app is solid, it works well, it shows payment instantly to the, the cashier. The cashiers, you can't trust a cashier with access to your Bitcoin wallet to send, right? You just want them to be able to receive. So BitPay's app accomplishes that. But unfortunately, BitPay doesn't have any alternatives to Bitcoin. So when we saw the Bitcoin fees going insane as they have over the last several months, that was pretty depressing here, given that, we've got these small dollar stores like a pizza place and a burger joint and this corner news shop that are taking Bitcoin, but no sane person's going to want to go into Corner News, grab a $2 drink out of the cooler, and then spend $2 additional in fees to buy a $2 drink. That's just insane. It's not going to happen. Even the most hardcore Bitcoiners can't even bring themselves to pay that kind of fee. So that was kind of crushing. In my opinion, some of the hardcores like me will go out there. If I'm going to buy a $10 meal, I'll spend the $2 in Bitcoin to send it. But the average person won't. And so that is what's holding up any kind of growth. And so we looked, and you were looking at some of these things as well, Joel, the different competitors to BitPay. Like, what is there out there? How good are they? And unfortunately, most of them, they don't have it together. Their app either is junk, or it has access to the full sending features, so you can't give it to a cashier, or whatever. There's these different problems with all the other ones, and almost none of them have cash out options. Some of them, one of them did, I forget which one it was, but they wouldn't do business in the United States. So it's like, there was nothing. And so that's why I was glad to see that the Dashers are working. A group of them are working on a Dash point of sale app. And we happen to know that there's somebody here in New Hampshire who's got a working Dash point of sale app that has just been sort of, it's in the testing, I would call it a beta at the moment. But you and I, we've both seen this, and it works well. It apes what the BitPay app does, and he's talking about giving the business a cash out app, or a cash out option. So cash into a bank account, which if you're a business owner, is a really important thing to have. Even though most of the business owners in Keene that are taking Bitcoin aren't using it, they're holding on to their Bitcoin. It's still good to have that as a sales feature, because the new business owner who's like, oh, I don't really know much about cryptocurrency, but my customers want me to take it, so I'm going to do it. The business owner who's kind of coming in from consumer demand, not their own personal interest, they want to know that they can cash out when they want to cash out. They want to know that ability is there for them, because it's that sort of like a safety net almost. So yeah, we need more development big time in this point of sale area.
Yes. So if Bitcoin's the only one who's really there in terms of putting up an app that yes, that a merchant can just use, and then they can seamlessly take Bitcoin and they can seamlessly convert it into dollars or whatever their currency is in order to survive. So it seems like Bitcoin has that, but Bitcoin, depending on the month you're using it, right, might have fees where it's not going to work.
Right. So and Bitcoin itself is broken.
Yes. So it seems like other currencies, right? Like, I mean, Ethereum's had some fee problems, but it seems to be a lot lower still than Bitcoin. Like Ethereum, Litecoin, there's a bunch of extra ones that are a lot, I guess, less broken in terms of like transaction fees and things like that. But is Dash the only one that's really working heavily on these point of sale systems that you know of?
That I can tell. I actually reached out to BitPay. I reached out to Blockchain, because Blockchain has a merchant app that basically does what BitPay does, but it doesn't have the cash out option. And it also, Blockchain officially isn't supporting it anymore in any way, shape, or form. So maybe they're supporting it, but they're not developing. So the official word from one of their customer service guys, who actually we know used to live up here, but is that they're just not developing that side of the business. It's probably a very small portion, which may be a challenge for companies as far as, is there a real fiscal reason to get involved in this? I would be interested in knowing of BitPay's merchants that they're doing business with, what percentage of them are brick and mortar versus what percentage are the online, the Dells, the Newegg's, these companies. I suspect brick and mortar is a fairly small percentage, but that's just speculation on my part. So it may not be a thing where people really have the incentive financially to get into that side of things, because we're not seeing any real competition. So that's why I'm excited by what's happening there on the Seacoast. I don't know if we're authorized to say who or what, but there is something cool being developed. And as I understand it, it's going to focus on New Hampshire-based businesses as far as its ability to provide support. Because that's really the challenge is if you're doing these point-of-sale apps, you have to be able to provide technical support to businesses, many of whom are not cryptographic, fanatics, right? Like they're not into cryptocurrency. They're just getting into it. They're brand new. And they're going to have problems. They're going to lose passwords. They're going to, have technical issues setting things up. And so that's the real challenge is how do you, on a very small level of fees, because BitPay only charges 1%, how do you, on that small level of fees, fund the kind of technical support personnel that you would need to have? Obviously, it's possible because BitPay is doing it, but is it being subsidized by the, the big operations on the online side that they have? I don't know.
All right. So final question. What do you think is the most heartening development in terms of cryptocurrency Main Street adoption? What's the one thing you've been seeing, the trend you've been seeing going on that's made you most believe that this is going to be working out long term?
It has to be the New Hampshire freedom migration, where libertarians like you and I, voluntarists, liberty-loving anarchists, people who care about freedom, are moving physically to one geographic area. And many of the people are big crypto fans. They're, some of them are probably early investors or whatever, but a lot of them are into cryptocurrency. And so if we get a bunch of libertarian crypto activists in one geographic area, which we've already done here, and it just keeps getting better as more people move in, then that's just going to mean more and more success. It's going to mean it's going to be easier to convert local businesses to accepting cryptocurrency because we're going to have a larger and larger user base over time here. That's the most exciting thing. That's why New Hampshire is, I think Derek J. Freeman over at freekeen.com recently called New Hampshire the best place for crypto or something like that. Or number one, I think is what he said. Now, whether that's true in all categories, I don't know. I haven't looked at all the numbers, but I can tell you, as far as boots on the ground are concerned, as far as people who are interested and active with cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Dash is getting, from what I understand, pretty big here among the activist community, the activists who want to send cryptocurrency back and forth. They don't want to use Bitcoin. So we're seeing those trends, I think, happen here first, and maybe we'll see those spread beyond just the immediate crypto scene here in New Hampshire. But I would encourage anybody who's watching here, if you care about freedom and you care about cryptocurrency, you really start to, you need to start planning a move to New Hampshire, because we can be much more effective together than spread apart.
Yeah, it's interesting how that works, because digital currency is so global. You can send anything to anyone, anywhere, instantly, and so irrespective of borders and geography, yet somehow geography plays a big role. I mean, you see that if you go to discover-dash.com and you look at all the Dash accepting businesses that are listed, you see New Hampshire's very heavily weighted on that. You can take helicopter tours over the mountains, pay with Dash. You can take martial art lessons. You can buy your organic produce. You can go get your bike tuned up. You can do a whole bunch of things, and that's just the beginning. I'm sure the Bitcoin economy was much deeper than that. Who knows where it is now because of the fee problems? But yeah, it seems like it's a very heavily weighted area. So definitely, you'd say it'd be at least worth a visit to try out for crypto enthusiasts, worth a visit to try out the local economy.
There are a lot of people who come here to visit because they're considering making a move up here, and they're like, wait, I can spend my crypto in real life? They've never even done it before. And up here, it's like a regular thing. So it's a real shocker, I think. And it doesn't have to do as much with geography as it does the people, right? So it's, people concentrating, as we've seen, makes a huge difference. And it, turns something from the weirdo standing on the side of the road to like a popular movement crypto's getting popular here. I mean, it just appeared on the front page of the Monadnock Shopper last week, which is basically an advertorial kind of newspaper, but it's been going, you know, it's a long running one. It's been here since like the late 50s. And it was a front page headline story last week. Got a lot of people talking around town, is what I heard about that. And it also got a lot of responses because we were doing a Bitcoin giveaway in association with that, meaning that anybody who emailed would get $10 worth of Bitcoin. And so that was a great way to kind of get sort of Bitcoin seeded out there, literally into people's pockets. So there's a lot of exciting things we can do when we've got people together. And that's, you know, I think we're just now experiencing the tip of the iceberg, and hopefully more people will move here and it will be even more successful.
Very nice. Yeah, that definitely paints a very strong, hopeful picture for the future. Well, thanks for taking the time to have a little chat, and I hope we see more great things. I mean, obviously the two of us, since we live here, hopefully we see more great things out of New Hampshire, but I'm sure the rest of the world would definitely like to see a spot that's trial run for what if everyone can just live off of Dash.
Well, I think it's always going to be a competitive marketplace. Dash seems to be one of the leading, I would say it's the leading competitor to Bitcoin right now up here. But I've also heard about people spending Ether at the local markets that are happening in the Liberty community here. So it's always going to be competitive, but that's exciting, that's fun. And as long as people are using some kind of cryptocurrency instead of the US dollar, we're winning.
All right. Well, I guess we'll end on that. Thanks again.
Thanks, Joel.